everybody. Welcome back to Rooted Conversations. Hey, Fran and Rodrigue.
Hey, Liz. Hey, Rodrigue.
Hey Liz, hey Fran.
We're so thrilled to be back with you today for our second episode of Rooted Conversations. Today we're going to talk about how we are nature, and we wanted to dedicate this episode to our dear friend and colleague Ron Wolf, who passed away last month. He's been a long time connection and supporter and friend of BioEarth, and we really miss him. Mm-hmm. And today we really just wanted to step into a little deeper dialogue about what it means to be nature, not just humans protecting nature, but nature protecting itself. Fran, do you want to kick us off?
Well, thanks. Last week I got to be on a Zoom chat with Casey Camp Hornick, the ecological ambassador of the Ponca Nation in Oklahoma. And it was a call of people who were interested in environmental care. And she stopped someone who was speaking about how we needed to save nature and said something that really touched me. She said, that's a foolish thought. We don't save nature, we are nature. And that is, in fact, the BioEarth starting point, this notion that we are nature and we are nature protecting itself. I found that really compelling, especially when I think about how indigenous religions, and I don't mean to essentialize them because there are over 5,000 tribes and many, many different worldviews among those who practice indigenous religions. But I think it is really important that 6% of the world's population who practice these indigenous traditions manage to take care of and preserve 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. So there's something there that is a different kind of relationship, I think, to non-human nature that we need to attend to and think about. But as a biblical scholar, what I wanted to talk to you all about today is how the Bible views this concept, we are nature. Back in the 1960s, there was a person named Lynn White Jr., and he wrote an essay that's become really famous, speaking about how Christianity is the root of the ecological crisis today, and how this concept of having dominion over animals, over plants, over the resources has led to the devastation of our natural world. But I kind of agree with him and I kind of don't agree with him, because I think it's the interpretation of some colonial Christianity, Western European Christianity, as it was handed down to American Christianity, that's responsible for that devastation, not the scriptures that Lynn White Jr. then cites. Because as a biblical scholar, I've studied the Hebrew of those texts as kind of a strategy of decolonizing those texts to understand what they really said in the beginning and originally. And I find when I read, especially Genesis 1 through 3, that it takes the position we are nature. As a matter of fact, the creation of Adam or Adam, we say Adam like it's a man's name, but in the beginning, Adam is just one creature, one human creature, created from the Adamah. And so we are Adam from Adamah, we are an earthling created out of the earth. But in recent years, I've started to refer to this as, to us as being not just an earthling, but a dirtling, because the emphasis is on dust, and you are created from dust, and to dust you shall return. The emphasis is on not only dust, but on rock and on earth itself. And so, for instance, when we think about the creation of that human being, I think there are two things that we forget. Genesis also says that God said, let the earth create all the living creatures. This is in chapter 1. God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind. This is 1:24. And so all the animals are also, all the land animals anyways, are also created from the earth. So we have the same creation in this in this Genesis story. We all come from the same place. And the second thing that people forget is they want to look back at this and say, but humans are different. We always want to say, we're different. We're different because we have the breath of life, right? Because of that scene where God blows the breath into Adam. Except that breath turns Adam into what's called a nefesh chaya. And that nefesh chaya, in English, a translation of that is a living soul. But the animals are also called a nefesh chaya. In fact, that is in 130. Everything that has, and then it's translated breath of life, but it could be translated the same way, a living soul. Exactly the same way, and it's singular. So we share this soul with the animals. We all have earth. We're from earth. We all have the breath, and then we all are a living soul. And I think that what's lurking behind this whole concept of being separate from that is some idea that we've inherited that says that we are more like God because we are in the image of God. But the explanation of being in the image of God is then to rule and have dominion. But that word, again, the translation makes it sound like exploitation of animals, that we can do whatever we want to the animals. But that's bad ruling, right? The word kavash and the word radah are translated in these violent ways in the English: subdue and have dominion. But those words are used elsewhere in the Bible just to say this is what a good ruler does to take control of the land, to order it, to help everything thrive. And so what are we in chapter 2? We're created, literally, Adam is created to till and tend the garden. That's our purpose. So we're in charge, yes, but in charge in this caretaking way where we have more responsibility. In other words, to be in the image of God means to have a job that we're supposed to do, right? It's a role, it's a responsibility that we have to live up to. But when we think of that, how often do we project some human anthropomorphic shape onto God? And that's also not biblical because the Bible uses many images for God, and one of my favorites is God is rock. Psalms refers to, and this was in the work of Arthur Walker Jones, Psalms refers to God 3 times, only 3 times as Father. And we want to take that literally because we see that as a human thing, right? But 20 times as rock. And Deuteronomy 28 says, "You have neglected the rock who bore you, God who birthed you." I mean, to me, that is incredibly powerful, and it helps reorient me to the rest of what we might want to call nature, but really is just us.
I'm always tickled when you remind me that I'm a dirtling, because that just speaks so deeply to how I perceive myself. I spend a lot of time in nature and being a bridge for young people in nature, going back to my earlier memories in middle school and high school, and then layering in being a preschool teacher and taking toddlers through that introduction to nature. There's so much there about understanding the connection to earth and connection to coming from the earth. And I think some of my earliest childhood memories are these moments where my identity as separate dropped away, and it happens sort of intuitively, like, for example, staring at a full moon while swinging on my childhood swing set, or sitting with trees and just having this experience of merging of consciousness before I had language or spiritual structure to articulate that. And so one of my favorite thinkers is Martin Buber, and his work always sits right on my altar because his wisdom and mystical understandings of these topics just really resonate. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, this is going to show up backward, but Martin Buber is a Jewish scholar and really incredible interpreter of a lot of these topics, and he speaks to the idea that there are two different ways of experiencing in the world. One is the I-it, which is where the I is assumed, so I exist, and the it is the object that I am experiencing. And so a lot of our experiences involve I-it moments where I'm perceiving something or someone outside of myself, and then I'm perceiving what they can do for me or how I can help them. But there's a separateness assumed in an I-it relationship, and it often is objectifying, even if the intent is loving or connected. Mm-hmm. And so the other option in Buber's philosophies is the I-you experience, or the I-thou experience, which is much more of a unified experience, where you take such presence into that moment of connection that the separateness, the perception of separateness drops away, and you're in this shared energetic space where you're just in pure experience. And Martin Buber really asks us to reach for more of those moments. And one of the things that inspires me so much about his thinking is that while we understand those moments may not exist constantly or all the time, they can exist in any interaction. So not just with a human to human interaction, but a human and animal interaction, a human and plant interaction, human and food interaction, human and wind interaction, or, taking the human out of it, other kinds of interactions that bring this sense of presence and unity. And so when I think about a lot of my experiences, particularly with trees, that's where I experience the I-thou really profoundly. And I've had the privilege of working in meditation quite a bit. I lived in the Buddhist community for a year and studied meditation in a very purposeful way, and found that a lot of my meditations with trees brought about these embodied understandings of interconnection, that experience of deep presence and the dropping away of separateness in a deep way, because it's true. We are connected. We are all in this unified whole. And when we can let those separate identities drop away and be in that profound sense of presence, magic happens. That's when healing happens. And that's when that deep sense of reciprocity occurs without a need for, measuring who's giving what, because you're there together in a merged space. And so I picture, when I sit with trees, this merging of our energy fields. I think about the way that my energy flows into the trees, and then the trees flow energy back into me in this cycle of healing and regeneration. And as Rodrigue and Fran know, I could probably talk for hours about trees. It's part of the reason we're so connected to the language of rootedness. We all have that kind of resonance, and I think people outside of our little circle do too. Those are some of the ways that I find that being nature, protecting itself, as opposed to, or as more than a human protecting nature, really show up in my practice. And Rodrigue, I know you have some rich stories about your experiences, and also very different perspectives about animals and plants and your context growing up in the Congo that I'd love to hear about.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And this is Rodrigue. Really, I just wanted to start off saying that nature, we are part of nature, we are nature. And there's plenty of evidence showing that, being exposed to nature, we experience a lot of good things, for our personal health, and we know traditional medicine with medicinal plants. Our well-being, our happiness, what nature gives us, what we give back to nature, is really what shows how interconnected we are. And one of the things that I would see growing up is people going to the lake, and when things are rough, when life is difficult, and you will see people going to the Lake Kivu in Goma, and just sit in front of it, facing the lake, and those waves, that sound that comes from the lake, calms people down, for hours. We grew up going there. We were beaten for going there, but we're not allowed to go there, but we went there a lot because you just find a different experience, when you're swimming in that lake, or just sitting beside the lake and watching kids, women, men, everybody communicating, socializing with the lake. That is one of the most important experience that I had growing up. But really, we experience the same things. When there's war, and I'm just taking this on a different perspective. When there's war in the Eastern Congo, if there are gunshots, gorillas will try to run away. Human beings were trying to run away. Everybody was trying to find peace. Everybody was trying to be safe. And that's what just shows that we are all nature. We all have those feelings, those understanding, and we share the same oxygen. We share everything.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not like different people. And I think the way that I could put it is, we share the same place, and everything affects everybody if you live in the same space. And true civilization for me is being able to be in good relationship with oneself, with others, and nature. Yeah, so I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Central Africa, basically. But we know that there is an outstanding biodiversity in the Congolese forests, which provide, shelter for many endemic species such as bonobos, mountain gorillas, tigers, lions, leopards, deers, the okapi, even aqua living creatures, and so on. It's many different diverse species are living in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And being from the Eastern Congo, the park that is very close to me is Virunga National Park. So I worked as an IT specialist and internet service provider for the Gorilla Foundation, which is one of the organizations that found the Virunga National Park. First, when I got to Rumangabo, which is like the headquarters of the park, the Virunga National Park, management. And we were eating around 7, probably 8 p.m. our dinner. And it was many people, park rangers, the administratives, and myself as a provider who came to support and provide internet to the workers of Virunga. And so we were eating, we finished everything. And then for some reason, a bonobo came over. Bonobo mom, which has a little bonobo. I don't know the baby bonobo, how it's called in English. But then the baby was trying to catch food from what, fell from the tables. And for some reason, there was one park ranger who was inside that dining room, which is, locked, has doors and windows. And it was windy. So it was a lot of wind. And that door just came and locked itself quickly. And there was a baby bonobo inside there. And the guy was inside there. Then the mom was outside. The mom got crazy. Got wild because you have no idea. She was about to rip that dining room. It wasn't made in wood. So she was about to rip that door just because she could feel her baby crying inside and another guy inside. And she thinks that the baby is facing a danger or something. So, and I look at that and I just look at a human being's experience. It's like, if you think that your relatives, or your daughter, your young brother, or anybody is facing something dangerous, and you think that you are powerful enough to save them from that, you can do exactly the same thing that bonobo was trying to do. Survive, make sure that you can save, you can be there, you can help. And that's one of the stories that make me feel that we are really alike. Just having a different approach to what life is, what the world is, what the nature is.
From 3 dirtlings to the rest of you, we're so joyful to be on this walk with you. And we hope that you find your roots in nourishing places and that you join us again next week. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.